At the Spottle Parlor by Rick Swan. Some games aren't played for fun. Artwork by Michael Wright. Issue 12, maybe, of Dungeon Magazine. Rick Swan. The Golden Bowl of Ashu Hassan appeared in Dungeon Issue 9. His other recent projects for TSR Inc. include work on WG7 Castle Greyhawk, It's My Party and I'll Dial If I Want To, The Sniper TM Special Forces board game, and contributions to the new Dragonlance and Top Secrets SI game supplements. Rick is a resident of exotic Des Moines, I don't know how to say that, sorry, Iowa. At the Spottle Parlor is a D&D module for 1 to 3 characters of 2nd to 4th level. A variety of classes would be helpful, including at least one fighter. For 1 to 3 characters of 2nd to 4th level. Interesting, okay. 1 character. The adventure takes place in a wooded area just north of the city of Galantry in the D&D games known world. See Gaz 3 Principalities of Galantry. Those wishing to incorporate this adventure in a different setting should feel free to make adjustments as they see fit. The DM should have 2 6-sided dice available for each PC. Adventure background. The wanderings of the PCs have brought them to the lush forests of Wendarian Ranges, north of the fabled city of Galantry. The sun has set. Tired from the long day's journey, the PCs are looking for a place to camp among the beautiful blue pines. No sooner has the party located a suitable clearing than the sound of rustling in the bushes alerts them to the presence of an intruder. From behind a tall pine steps a fat dwarf, elegantly dressed in polished chainmail and a flowing satin cape. "Hold your swords," he says. "I come as a friend." The dwarf bows deeply, his ample belly sagging over his leather belt. "My name is Bufford Shabin," he says, "and I'm here to extend an invitation on behalf of my employer, the Honourable Bradbert Nis, who requests the pleasure of your company in his home for an evening of spottle." The PCs immediately recognise the name Bradbert Nis as a legendary thief who reputedly retired with riches enough to last 100 lifetimes. He has since become celebrated throughout the known world for his high-stakes spottle games, where rumour has it that millions in gold pieces change hands in a single night. What's more, he's said to give away fortunes to players whose company he enjoys. Invitations to Nis's games are highly coveted and are generally extended only to wealthy aristocrats, high-ranking officials, and other eminent nobles. The PCs may be delighted that they've been offered this golden opportunity, but they may also be puzzled, considering their modest means. They're hardly typical spottle players. For the Dungeon Master. For nearly 2 decades, Master Thief Bradbert Nis and his loyal assistant Bufford Shabin plundered the treasures of Galantry without once being apprehended. Their roguish style earned the admiration of the Thugs Guild, while their generous contributions to orphanages and hospitals made them heroes among the common folk. Even the local constabulary admitted to a grudging admiration of Nis's skill and spirit. One summer's day, a small group of Grand Army soldiers, led by Constable Jarek Viriana, were on routine patrol in the woodlands of the Wendarian Ranges when they were brutally ambushed by a bandit gang from Darakin. Surprised and outnumbered, the Grand Army soldiers were on the verge of annihilation when Bradbert Nis appeared out of nowhere to wade into the battle. Nis single-handedly drove off the bandits and in the process rescued Viriana from certain death. Viriana. When the last bandit was driven away, the grievously wounded Nis collapsed unconscious on the battlefield. In spite of his heroism, Nis was subsequently arrested and brought to Galantry to stand trial for his years of thievery. Viriana spoke to Nis's behalf and secured a pardon on the condition that Nis retire from crime and live out the rest of his days as an honest citizen. Nis, approaching an old age and crippled as a result of his wounds, graciously accepted the terms of his pardon. With the help of his new friends from Glantry, Nis established a home in the secluded forest area near the Wendarian Ranges. To while away the time, Nis invented Spottle, a no-limits gambling game that quickly became a favourite pastime among the local aristocracy. Nis settled into a pleasant routine of nightly competition with his wealthy companions. But last night, after the evening's players had gone home, Nis answered a knock on his door to reveal an unexpected visitor. Lord Guz, the king of a hobgoblin tribe that had recently taken up residence in the Wendarian Mountains. Lord Guz said that he heard of Nis's famous game and wanted to play. Nis knew that fraternisation of any kind with hobgoblins was strictly forbidden by the officials of Galantry, yet the opportunity to gamble with an actual hobgoblin was tempting. Against his better judgment, Nis invited Guz in for a session of Spottle. Luck was not with Lord Guz that night. After losing 10 straight rounds of Spottle, Guz angrily accused Nis of cheating and threatened to kill him on the spot. The terrified Nis volunteered to return the winnings, but Guz wasn't satisfied. Guz offered to let Nis live if Nis would round up some new slaves to work in the hobgoblin coal mines. The old coal mines. Guz would return the following midnight, taking with him either the slaves or Nis's head. Nis spent the rest of the night weighing his dilemma, but in the end felt he had no choice but to comply with Guz's demand. He and Buffred could hardly take on an entire hobgoblin army. Escape was impossible. How far could a lame old man get in less than a single day? Help from Galantry was out of the question. If the officials found out he'd violated the terms of his pardon by associating with hobgoblins, he would find himself living out the rest of his life behind bars. Earlier this evening, Nis sent Buffred to scour the woods for the most harmless-looking travellers he could find and invite them home for a Spottle game. Nis planned to keep the winnings, Nis planned to keep them winning, so they'd be sure to stick around. When Guz arrived at midnight, Nis would turn the Spottle players over as the new slaves of the hobgoblins and be rid of Guz once and for all. It was unfortunate, thought Nis, that the innocents would have to pay the price for his indiscretion. But what else could he do? Off to the game. If the PCs accept Nis's invitation, Buffred tells them to follow, urging them to hurry. The sooner we arrive, he says, the sooner you can catch your winnings. If the PCs resist, the DM should remind them that these invitations are offered only rarely and would be considered by most to be the opportunity of a lifetime. Buffred doesn't know the details of Nis's arrangement with Guz. He's just doing what he's told. If the PCs have any questions, Buffred tells them that Nis will supply the answers when they arrive. If the PCs are fuzzy about Spottle, a distinct possibility, Buffred assures them that Nis will go over all the rules before the game begins. Buffred leads the PCs on a winding route that takes them deep into the forest. If the PCs wish to engage Buffred in conversation, he is glad to reminisce at length about the exploits of Nis back in the good old days, including the story of how Nis received a full pardon from Galantry for his brave rescue of Constable Veriana. Buffred Shaban, Dwarf 5th level. This is D&D basic, or whatever you want to call it. So he doesn't have a class other than Dwarf. I don't know. Well, yeah. I guess you turn him into maybe a thief or a fighter or something. 5e. The Spottle Parlor. After about an hour's journey, the party comes to a heavy iron door set in the side of a mountain. Buffred produces a set of keys from his pocket and uses several of them to unlock the complex latches. He pulls the door open and with a bow ushers the PCs inside. Buffred follows them in, closing and locking the door behind him. The PCs step into a circular room, about 25 feet across, bathed in the warm glow of an elaborate brass chandelier containing huge white candles. The chandelier hangs over a large marble table with a small iron ring protruding from the centre. The walls are decorated with colourful silk tapestries featuring scenes of jewelled mountains and rivers of gold. One wall has a small round window. In the wall opposite the door is a passageway covered by a black satin curtain. Next to the curtain is an 8-foot-tall iron statue of a warrior with a prominent star-shaped hole in the centre of its chest. The statue is covered in a thick layer of dust. 3 other guests are already seated at the table. A fragile-looking man dressed in an oversized grey robe, a chubby teenage boy in ragged work clothes, and a lizard man with darting eyes, his hand on the club dangling at his side. The guests sit silently, fidgeting nervously in their chairs. Buffred offers the PCs seats at the table. "Please make yourself comfortable," he says. "I'll tell Master Nis that all the players have arrived." With that, Buffred bows and disappears behind the black curtain. Getting acquainted. While waiting for Nis, the PCs may wish to acquaint themselves with the other guests. Vassen Van Slep. This is an NPC. He is cleric 2nd level by the look of it. Plate mail. Under robes. Mace, silver holy symbol, pouch with 9 copper of church money. Spell, cure light wounds. Vanson is a 2nd level human cleric who has been charged by his superiors to solicit funds for the construction of a holy shrine in the Wendarian Mountains. He is extremely high-strung and nervous, more so lately because he has only been able to solicit 9 copper in a week of trying. His armour creaks slightly when he moves his arms and shoulders. If the PCs address him, Vanson at first is too timid to speak. If the PCs gently draw him out, Vanson identifies himself and his mission, explaining how he jumped at the chance to attend the Spottle game in hopes of increasing his funds for the shrine. "I guess this isn't exactly the way my superiors would want me to raise money," he says. "But if I come back empty-handed, they'll make me the permanent missionary to the Blight Swamp." Shkad, Lizard Man. Hit dice, 2+1. Damage by weapon, large club, sack of 30 gold pieces, 3 dried fish, important, empty wine flask. Okay, right, yep. Shkad was patrolling the Wendarian Mountains with a Lizard Man military unit until he split off from the group to indulge in a flask of leech wine. He drank until he passed out, and when he came to, his unit was gone. The old leech wine. While stumbling around in the woods, he ran into Buffred and eagerly accepted his offer for a Spottle game, knowing that extra money would come in handy for bribing his superiors. Although he can speak their language, Shkad ignores any overtures from the PCs, hissing a threat to leave him alone if they persist. Excuse me. It's leech wine. Gurgi de Ambreville. Yeah. Gurgi de Ambreville. Wereball, currently in human form. Hit dice 4. Damage 2 to 12 by tusk bite or by weapon in human form. Attacks 1. Different AC for human form versus Wereball. Has a dagger. Alignment neutral, dagger hidden in clothing, belt pouch with 3 GP. Oh, sorry, Shkad had an alignment of neutral, and Venson had an alignment of neutral as well. Gurgi is a distinctly related member of the famed de Ambreville family of House Sainair in New Averoigon. I don't know, that's nowhere near it, sorry. Described in D&D module X2 Castle Amber. Oh, that sounds familiar. Like many members of that family, Gurgi is afflicted with lycanthropy. His disease causes him to periodically transform into a wereball. In his human form, Gurgi is 14 years old, overweight, and has a face covered with acne. He is lazy and stupid, but unlike most wereballs, is friendly. Those in his general vicinity will always notice that he is not fond of baths. Gurgi recently ran away from home when his parents told him he wasn't doing his share of chores. He hopes to win enough money at Spottle so that he never has to go back to his mean old mum and dad. Gurgi converses freely with the PCs, although questions more difficult than "what's your name?" tend to give him trouble. He has an effective intelligence of 6. He gives no indication that he is afflicted with lycanthropy, which he considers a shameful secret. Sorry, I missed that, so... Okay, doesn't say. He's got an intelligence equivalent of 6th. Before Nis appears, Vanson rises to make an impassioned plea for donations from the assembled Spottle players. Shkad laughs at him. Gurgi asks a randomly chosen PC to explain what Vanson is talking about, but no amount of explanation enables Gurgi to grasp the concept of a shrine, and therefore he won't donate. It is up to the PCs whether or not they make a donation. Vanson is delighted with any amount. The DM should take note of any PC who gives Vanson a donation. Excuse me. Meeting Nis. After Vanson completes his fund drive, the PCs hear metallic clanking coming from somewhere deep underground, as if heavy latches and doors are being opened and closed. The sounds gradually move towards the door with the satin curtain. A final door opens and closes and the curtain parts. Buffred appears carrying a leather bag and a small brass balance used to check the weight of the Spottle dice. Both are placed on the table in front of the empty chair nearest the curtain. The curtain parts again, and an old man limps out dressed in formal evening wear. He has bushy grey beard, like Buffred, a large belly hanging over his belt. He carries a small sack and a wooden box with several holes drilled in it. The old man eases his girth into the empty chair, setting the box and sack on the floor beside him. He smiles broadly at the players. "Welcome to my home, my good friends. My name is Bradford Nis. May the luck of the immortals be with you tonight." Bradford Nis is a thief, level 12. Hit points 28. I didn't read out hit points before. Sorry about that. Gurgi's got hit points 17. Shkad's got hit points... doesn't say. Oh, he's got hit dice, I guess that's... And Vanson has hit points 5. Little old Vanson. Not old. Oh yeah, so Bradford Nis, he's got not so good movement, reduced due to injury, damage by weapon. It's got some dexterity, 16, charisma 15, leather armour, dagger underclothing. Before Nis can continue, Vanson rises from his seat and passionately explains his fund drive for the shrine to Nis, concluding with a request for donation. Nis shrugs. "Of course," he says. "How much do you want?" "Anything, sir," says Vanson. "Anything at all would be most gratefully appreciated." "Help yourself," says Nis, tossing him the sack. The sack is actually a bag of holding and contains a portion of Nis's treasure. 475 copper, 512 silver pieces, 905 gold pieces, 270 platinum pieces, and 31 cloth-wrapped gems of random value of up to 500 gold pieces each. And a key. In addition, assume there is enough money here to cover almost any reasonable bet the PCs make, but only the items given above are found in the bag if it is taken or stolen. So this is old school early D&D amounts of cash. Probably a lot less than 5e, I imagine. But no. While Vanson rummages through the bag of holding, Nis asks if there are any questions before he goes over the rules. None of the PCs have any questions, but the retired thief cheerfully answers any general questions the PCs might have. If asked how they were chosen, Nis says he wanted some new faces at the table and instructed Buffred to invite the first travellers he could find. If asked about the curtain, Nis explains that it leads to the living quarters and the treasure vault. All securely guarded by a series of intricately locked doors. This is true. The PCs can get no further into Nis's home unless the DM has mapped it out and wishes to allow the PCs to explore the complex. Vanson produces a small ruby from the bag, value 500 GP, and asks if Nis is willing to donate it to the shrine. "Of course," says Nis carelessly, taking back the bag. He will do anything to keep the players in the game. Vanson stuffs the gem in his pocket and breathlessly thanks Nis. Turning the page. Unknown to Nis, the ruby is not all Vanson took. The cleric also noticed a star-shaped key with a black diamond in its centre. He didn't think Nis would donate the key, so he took it without asking, secretly slipped it into his pocket. Before we begin, says Nis, I'll give you the usual warnings, Nis says. Nis says that some of the guests might be tempted to take advantage of his hospitality, then gestures to the iron statue. This is a living statue, he says, a gift from grateful citizens of Galantry. As you can see from the dust, it's been quite a while since I've had to activate it, but rest assured, it is fully operational. Nis then places the box on the table, opens the lid, and lifts out a fat green toad the size of a small dog. The toad has short, skinny legs and two huge, bulging eyes that rotate independently of each other. Nice. The toad is covered from head to toe with white freckles. A thin chain hangs around its neck. It looks over the players with disinterest, then sneezes. Nis wipes its nose with a silk handkerchief. Wow, that's quite a paragraph. Spottle Toad. Hit dice 1. 6 hit points. Damage 1 to 4 with a bite. SA, I'm not sure what that is. Sticky tongue automatically catches items within 6 feet weighing 1 CN or less. 1 coin, I guess. Saves as a first level fighter. Alignment neutral. Excuse me. Nis places the Spottle Toad in the middle of the table and clips its chain to the centre ring. Are you all familiar with Spottle Toads? Asks Nis. Assuming the PCs are familiar with these creatures, Nis explains that Spottle Toads are unfamiliar with these creatures, sorry. Nis explains that Spottle Toads are a rare breed of amphibian, specially bred for the game of Spottle. This is a good one, he says. He produces a bit of food from his pocket and tosses it straight up in the air. In the blink of an eye, the Spottle Toad flicks out its tongue to a length of 6 feet and snags the food, instantly reeling it into its mouth. Nis pats the toad affectionately on the head as it contentedly munches its catch. Nis says that if they wish, players may stroke the toad for luck. Once the game begins, however, stroking the toad is not allowed. Shkad sneers at the offer, but Gurgi happily gives the toad a light pat on the head. Vanson is afraid of it. The PCs may stroke the toad if they wish. Stroking the toad is mere superstition and has no effect on the game. When everyone has had a chance to stroke the toad, Nis explains the rules of the game. The rules of Spottle. Here we go. This is page 3 and we're getting into the rules of Spottle. Spottle is a simple dice game resembling blackjack. Nis carefully goes over the following standard rules. Rule 1. The Spottle Master is in charge of all aspects of the game. His decisions are final. Nis, of course, is the evening Spottle Master. Players are playing against the Spottle Master, not against each other. Number 2. Each player is required to have 2 Spottle dice. A Spottle's die can be any 6-sided dice, but the die must be weighed and treated by the Spottle Master prior to use. A die cannot exceed 1 gold piece in weight and may be no larger than 2 feet across. 2 inches across, I should say. Treatment of a die consists of rubbing it in powdered flies, thus making it more attractive to the toad. Only the Spottle Master is allowed to perform this treatment. The Spottle Master is paid 1 CP per die for this service. Players may use the same set of Spottle dice throughout the game. However, if a die is lost or eaten by the toad, the player must have a new die weighed and treated by the Spottle Master, paying 1 CP per die for the service. At the beginning of a Spottle round, each player places a bet in front of him on the table, or her. Unless the Spottle Master declares otherwise, there is no limit on the amount of the bet. Instead of money, players may also bet objects. The Spottle Master announces the value of the object. The Spottle Master announces the value of the object bet prior to the roll of the dice. If the player does not agree with the amount announced, he may either place a different bet or sit out that round. NIS uses the standard prices given in the D&D game rulebooks. Therefore, if a flask of oil is bet, NIS sets the value of the bet to 2 GP. Number 4 of 9. After the bets are placed and the values of all bet objects are determined, each player rolls 1 die on the table. One die on the table in clear sight of the Spottle Master. All of the players. When all the players have rolled 1 die, the Spottle Master rolls 1 die on the table in clear sight of all. After the Spottle Master has rolled 1 die, each player must declare a raise or a hold. If the player declares a raise, he must double his bet, or her bet. The player places an equivalent amount on the table with its original bet. If the player does not have the equivalent amount of their bet, this option is not available to them. If the player declares a hold, they stay with the amount of their original bet. After the player declares either a raise or a hold, they roll a second die. When all the players have declared and made their second rolls, the Spottle Master makes his second roll. Unlike the players, the Spottle Master does not declare a raise or hold. After the Spottle Master makes his second roll, the round is over. Winners and losers are determined as follows. A. Any player whose dice total is 11 or 12 automatically loses the round. Their bet is forfeit to the Spottle Master. The Spottle Master's total is allowed to total 11 or 12 without penalty. That's interesting. B. Each remaining player whose dice total exceeds the total of the Spottle Master is a winner. The Spottle Master pays each winner the amount of their bet. If a winning player declares a raise, the Spottle Master pays them twice the amount of their original bet. A player whose total is less than that of the Spottle Master loses, forfeiting their bet. If a losing player declared a raise, they forfeit twice the amount of the original bet. A player whose total matches the total of the Spottle Master is neither a winner nor a loser. They keep their bet. 9. The Spottle Toad may swallow a player's die at any time. It can digest almost anything but metal. Spottle Toads are trained not to swallow a Spottle Master's die. A swallowed die counts as a roll of 0 for that round. Imagine digging this up. So let me say that again. A swallowed die counts as a roll of 0 for that round. Player may not roll a replacement die. The player must pay the Spottle Master for a new treated Spottle die at the beginning of next round. Example, player A rolls a 2 on their first die. Shading. And a 6 on their second. Unfortunately, Toad swallows the second die after it is thrown. Player A's die total for this round is 2. But before the next round begins, player A pays the Spottle Master 1 CP for a new treated Spottle die. The old fly dust, eh? The DM should be sure that these rules are fully understood. After any questions are answered, each PC and NPC gets a pair of Spottle dice. Compliments of the house, says Nis, who normally has players pay 2 CP for the pair. The game is ready to begin. Alright. So 11 or 12, and you automatically lose. Any player whose dice total is 11 or 12 automatically loses. They forfeit to the Spottle Master. Each remaining player whose dice total exceeds the Spottle. A player whose total is less than that of the Spottle Master is forfeiting the bet. Feels like the house has got the advantage. No shit, Sherlock. Running the game. For the convenience of the DM, all of the rolls and bets for the NPCs as well as the rolls for NIS are provided in the following charts. If the DM prefers, they can ignore the charts and actually make the necessary bets and roll dials while the game is in progress. In this case, they will also have to improvise the reactions of the NPCs, but they may use the events sections of the charts for suggestions. If the DM chooses this option, they should refer to simulating Spottle. Oh, that's kind of cool. The DM should bear in mind that Nis is less interested in winning than they are in keeping the PCs and NPCs around until Lord Guz shows up. Nis assumes that his guests will keep playing as long as they're winning, so he'll do whatever it takes, including inventing new rules to make sure everybody stays happy and stays put. For tips on handling unexpected actions of the NPCs, see Troubleshooting. Oh wow, it's like a dishwasher manual. A game of Spottle consists of an indefinite number of rounds. Information is given in the charts to play 10 rounds, after which Lord Guz shows up, see Midnight Rendezvous. However, if the NPCs are getting restless, the DM may eliminate the last few rounds and go straight to Lord Guz's arrival, making appropriate adjustments in the monetary totals that each NPC has. Fun with the NPCs. Before beginning, the DM should secretly choose which PCs and NPCs will harass which PCs the NPCs will harass during the Spottle game. Make sure that every PC has been chosen by at least one NPC. Vanson constantly nags one PC for donations to his shrine fund. The nagging becomes particularly obnoxious whenever the chosen PC wins a round. Vanson's chosen PC should be the one who donated to the shrine fund when the party first met him. Gurgi is too dense to understand the intricacies of Spottle and peppers one PC with stupid questions throughout the game. Examples: which is more, one silver piece or one gold piece? Or, if I rolled a 5 the first time, what would I have to roll to add up to a 7? Scad is very superstitious. He becomes convinced that one of the PCs is giving him bad luck. Whenever Scad is losing, he snarls and threatens his chosen PC. Scad's chosen PC should be either a fighter or the leader of the party. Leader of the party! That's interesting. How to use the charts. The following charts give the DM the necessary information to run 10 consecutive rounds of Spottle without actually having to roll die for the NPCs. Dice for the NPCs. The PCs roll their own dice and make their own bets during these rounds in accordance with the rules of Spottle. A round is played as follows. Each PC announces their bet, places it on the table and rolls one die. Nis decides the order in which the PCs roll, and this order remains for the rest of the game. Each NPC then announces their bet and places it on the table, and rolls one die. The DM reads this information from the chart under the first roll column. The die roll is the number in the parentheses following the amount of the bet. Let's see, round 1 over here. 1 CP, then it's okay. So, alright, cool. Yep. Nis rolls one die. The die roll is the number in parentheses in the first roll column. Yep. Each PC makes their declaration, hold or raise. If they raise, they place the increase on the table. They then roll their second die. Each PC makes their declaration. Sorry, write that. 5. That was 4, by the way. 5. Each NPC makes their declaration, places any bet increases on the table, and rolls the second die. The DM reads this information from the second roll column. Yep. 6. Nis rolls his second die, number in parentheses under the second roll column. All right, that's pretty obvious. Nis pays off the winners and collects from the losers. Following each chart is the events section, which explains specific NPC actions and other interesting occurrences which take place during the round. Here's an example of how round 1 might go using the information in the round 1 chart. Assume one PC is playing. The PC, like the computer, bets 5 GP and rolls a 2 on their first die. The DM announces that Vanson bets 2 CP, and rolls a 2. Gurgi bets 1 GP, Gurgi bets 1 GP and rolls a 3. Scad bets 1 GP and rolls a 5. Nis rolls a 3. The PC declares he will raise, adds another 5 GP to their bet, and rolls a 5 on their second die, for a total of 7. The DM announces that Vanson declares a hold, and rolls a 1 for a total of 3. Gurgi declares a raise, and adds 1 GP to their bet, and rolls a 5 for a total of 8. Scad declares hold and rolls a 4 for a total of 9. Nis's second roll is a 2 for a total of 5. Nis pays off the PC, Gurgi and Scad. Vanson loses 2 CP. NPC players' names marked with asterisks in each chart are the winners of those rounds. Okay, so Scad wins here. Okay, seems to make sense. So there's the chart. I won't read that again. At the end of the round, Gurgi grunts in delight that he's won. Good old Gurgi. Oh, sorry, Gurgi and Scad. And the victorious Scad cackles with glee. The losing Vanson asks the chosen PC if he'd consider her alone. Alright, cool. So Gurgi got 8, Scad got 9, Nis got 5. Gurgi raised, so it gets 2 GP. Can see how that'd be addictive. Round 2. There's no asterisks there. That's weird. They didn't last long. So round 2, Vanson gets 7 raises, Gurgi gets 3 raises, Scad gets 11 raises, but 11 is no good. Nis gets 8. Should have read that first. Nis announces that Gurgi's boot has a value of CP. 2 CP, sorry. After declaring a raise, Gurgi increases his bet to 2 boots for a total value of 4 CP. All the NPCs lose. Vanson puts the squeeze on his chosen NPC, adding any money he gets to his next bet and losing it again. Gurgi asks his PC, how can I win one time and lose the next time? I don't get it. Scad leans into his PC and hisses, you put the evil eye on me again and I'll kill you. Round 3. There we go, so round 3. Alright, Gurgi bet a fig. Vanson had their second dice eaten. His second dice eaten. Oh, excuse me. Right, time to stop after this one. This announces that Gurgi's dried fig has a value of 1 CP. The Spottle Toad slurps up Vanson's second die as it tumbles across the table. Vanson spends 1 CP at the beginning of the next round for a new Spottle die. Again, all the NPCs lose and are very discouraged. Gurgi is becoming hungry and really wanted another fig. Concerned that they'll quit, Nis tells the players they've just played a charity round. He dips into his bag of holding and gives each of the players 10 gold pieces, PCs included. The NPCs are stunned and pleased. Scad accepts the money but warns his chosen PC, you make me lose again and your evil eye is mine. And we might pause there. Some cool pictures over the page. There we go. Look at that. It's getting on. Thanks for listening.